Imagine yourself in a world with no freedom. You're watched every second of the day. There are no rules, but make one small misstep and you'll disappear forever, never to be seen again. Sounds horrible, right? Well, this is the world of 1984. Hi, I'm Brendan, and as you can tell, I chose 1984 by George Orwell for my choice book project. It was published first in 1949, and it's been republished many times since. It's basically the first dystopian story ever written, or really the foundation one rather. And after reading this, I have to say, I'm very ambivalent on this story. It's really well written, and it's really engaging, but, it's almost hard to talk about. It's so disgusting later on. And I can't even imagine if the world was like this book. But I'll start with the setting to really drive that home. It takes place in the fictional country of Oceania, in an alternate timeline separate from ours. And I'll start off by saying that the entire world is based on propaganda. That's the whole premise of this book, and the concept of doublethink, which was introduced by Orwell for this book, which means believing two contradictory ideas at the same time and accepting both. You can't really believe anything about the world itself in this book to be true, and it's very interesting. You have to form your own ideas. Like, you can't trust the narrator. Winston, he's the main character, very unreliable. However, the setting of the actual story, where the story physically takes place, is what was London, so in that area. And another interesting thing, it never gives away the actual year or the actual boundaries. Oceania is supposedly always at war with another country, East Asia or Eurasia, but they never really tell where any of these places are, and it's really interesting because you don't know what's actually happening. And the actual government of Oceania is called the Party, and it's a cross between fascism and communism, and it's a very oppressive form of government, but I'll cover that later in more of the characters and plot section. But overall, the setting is very integral to the story. The government watches your every move through telescreens, which are sort of like TVs and microphones mixed together, similar to what the NSA does today. And another strange thing, nothing is actually illegal. There are no laws in this world, but the people fear the government so much that they won't do anything. They won't do certain things, rather. Like sex and romance are gone. You can't really write anything down, and it's even frowned upon to be alone, because if you do something against this party, you'll see what happens, but pretty much they'll kidnap you and take you away, and yeah, you'll never be seen again. Also, I'm sorry for that pause, there are secret or thought police everywhere, kind of like the secret police almost in Nazi Germany, and if they even think that you were thinking about committing a crime, they kidnap you and they'll send you to the Ministry of Love, which is an ironic name because it's the section that deals with torture. Also, there are three less important ministries: Ministry of Plenty, which starves the people; Ministry of Peace, which fights the war; and Ministry of Truth, which creates propaganda. I thought those were funny names. But yeah, so this is pretty much the ultimate dystopia setting. And now I'll get into like the plot and characters. The story begins with Winston Smith at his place of work. He works for the Ministry of Truth. He actually creates some of these lies. And he is the clear protagonist. He's a middle-aged man who is rather intelligent and strongly dislikes the party. He feels restricted due to the party's constant spying and also out of fear of being caught by them. They have no qualms against torture of all kinds. This sets them up as the main antagonist and also sets up the main theme of the entire book, which is the fear of totalitarianism. I'll get more into that later, but that is the main theme of the story. Anyway, Winston's dislike of the party leads him to starting a diary, and this is a very frowned upon act because you don't want to have any free will in this world. The party sees you doing something that even resembles rebellion or forming your own thoughts, and they will take you and you'll be gone. So he does this, and he's very, very paranoid after doing this, but then he begins to notice maybe he's not so alone. A coworker named O'Brien makes eye contact with him, and this gives Winston hope. O'Brien's a large and intelligent man, and at first he appears a possible ally to Winston. No, this man could be helpful. And Winston also meets a girl named Julia, who turns out to be a foil to Winston, because he is a complex and paranoid man who takes very stupid risks with what he does, like the diary. And she's a simple woman who obeys the party at every turn to avoid being caught. And Julia confesses her love to Winston, so the two become lovers and pledge their allegiance against the party. This is where the plot really thickens, though, because they go to O'Brien because he tells her about O'Brien, and they think he might be able to help. So he gives them, they confess what their true beliefs, and he gives them Goldstein's book and makes them members of the Brotherhood. Now, the Brotherhood is a supposed organization which is always against or fighting against the party, and it was founded by a man named Goldstein, who used to be a former leader of the party, if I'm not mistaken, and he was eventually kicked out because they didn't like him, but he got away. And so this organization is supposed to be fighting the party, but this turns out to not be the case. Winston and Julia go back to a place that they bought, or that they're renting, and they try to read this book to be members of the Brotherhood and start this whole process, but the thought police catch them when they're trying to read it. And Winston learns a terrible truth from that point on. O'Brien turns out to be a totally evil person, and this Brotherhood is a sham. It seems to be made up by the party to draw out those who secretly hate them. Then the party will swoop in and snatch those people up when it realizes that they don't really like the party. O'Brien returns to tell Winston this when he's held in a cell for his crime, and that's kind of the plot twist. O'Brien comes back, and you think O'Brien's going to be like, oh, maybe he'll save him or something, but no, O'Brien turns out to be this totally terrible dude who tells him all these things and ruins Winston's life. And then after that, O'Brien takes Winston back to certain few rooms and pretty much tortures him, and it's almost unspeakable. It's awful. Some of the things he does, he just completely screws Winston up, and it's hard to talk about. It was so horrible. This is the part of the book that I really didn't like very much. Not that it was badly written or anything, it was very interesting, but it's hard to get through. And to be honest, I can't go much farther because I really don't want to ruin the ending, but the ending completely lives up to how depressing the rest of the book is. And and if you like the rest of the book, you will like the ending. I think the ending would be satisfying for you. But this book's not for the faint of heart. And now, to really get on to the themes of the book, the main theme, which I mentioned earlier, is the fear of totalitarianism. And, I did some research. I'm not a history expert or anything, but I looked some things up and found out, this book was written in 1949, and there was actually a lot of ambiguity towards communism at the time. Some Americans, intellectuals even, favored communism. But Orwell, who grew up in India and then moved to London, had seen how communist regimes kept their people in line through brutal acts, and he needed to warn everybody of the dangers of this mindset, this government. This book is meant to send the message that we can't let this happen. We need inequality, and surveillance is not the way to go. People need to be free, or they're going to lead a miserable existence like Winston. The final theme of this book, which I want to talk about, is technology. The party uses the telescreens to watch over its people. At the time this was written in 1949, technology was on the rise, people were fond of it. However, Orwell knows even the best fruit can become sour. Things like TVs were cherished as amazing in the 40s and 50s. Everyone loved their TVs back then, and we still do now, but even things like that can be used for pure evil. They were used in this book to watch over people and what they do, and even to send out propaganda. And a similar thing happens today with internet and computers, actually. I read an article on WashingtonBlogs.com entitled, quote, this is a long one, "The government is spying on us through our computers, phones, cars, buses, streetlights, at airports and on the street, via mobile scanners and drones, through our smart meters, and in many other ways." Now, I know that's a mouthful, but I liked this article, and I thought it made a good point. It showed us the true numbers the true scale of the mass surveillance epidemic that we're going through right now, and how much we're really being watched. For an example, it says that at Guantanamo Bay prison, the prisoners are having their brains scanned without consenting, which means they literally have the technology to scan and see brain patterns and maybe even predict what you're doing without you even telling them anything. And it also, that really just means, no thought is safe. And if this technology gets into the wrong hands, this could be terrible. Like 1984, they monitor your body language in that book, or they monitor the people's body language, and if they think you're doing something wrong, you're gone, snap, just like that. And this could happen in real life. And the article also points out how police in 13 states are using drones to spy, which I thought just sounded a lot like the thought police, like literal police are spying on us and watching our every move. And it's just scary to see how close we are to the world, which is supposed to be truly awful in every way. But to get a little bit more back on topic here, 1984 is definitely a very well-written book. If you want something to keep you on the edge of your seat and you can stomach the torture and other atrocities, I would pick this one up. There's a new twist and turn at every corner. The plot definitely thickens at certain points, and you'll definitely tell when it does. And this book's also very relatable to issues today, like I said. I personally hated reading through the nasty bitch, which is why I'm a little bit ambiguous on this book, but the message it sends is really powerful, and you will definitely not regret reading this at all.